Alrighty. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you taking the time, especially on this, pretty nice, balmy day, to chat with us about volunteer and service work. We'll do introductions first. So, my name is Catherine Archer. I'm an associate director in our career services department. I am the supervisor for our arts, public, and human services career advising team, and I'm also the career advisor for the social services, education, and nonprofit career community. And I've been at Loyola for 7 years, actually, in October, which is exciting. And I'm going to pass it on to my co-presenter so she can introduce herself.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. My name is Emily Madsen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the senior career advisor for the law, policy, and government career community. So I work with Catherine very closely, and I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Yeah, so we felt like this would be a great opportunity to do a presentation about volunteer and service work because it is something that is just so prevalent across the experience of our students. And the job internship and service fair was just last week. I hope you had a chance to attend. It looks like we had about 600 students at that, so that's amazing. And so we thought it would be fantastic to continue that conversation about service work and volunteer work and all that fun stuff with the presentation today. So you might already be aware of career services, but I always like to think of it as Loyola's kind of best kept secret in many ways because I can't tell you how many students I've talked to and they're like, "You do that? We have that resource? Amazing." So I always like to shout out career services. We do things like these workshops, the career fair that happened last week. We have a ton of amazing resources on our website, Handshake. Whoopsie. Let me back up there. Um, which you can find at this link here, luc.joinhandshake.com. I highly recommend going on that website regularly. That's where you can schedule appointments with us career advisors, as well as find job and internship opportunities and volunteer work, and get a lot of resources that are related to the career industries and career interests of your choice. So you'll see we've got plenty of contact information here. You can reach us by email and phone if you have general questions. We also have a fun Instagram where we post updates about events that we're hosting and cool pictures and videos from those experiences too. So I recommend getting connected to us through there. And you might have also heard about career communities. So that's what I mentioned whenever I was talking about the social services, education, nonprofit career community, and Emily's law, policy, and government one. So we actually have 11 different undergraduate career communities, and we have career communities that are especially for grad students. So if you are not a part of a career community yet, we do have a survey, and Emily just posted it in the chat. You can fill out that survey, join as many career communities as you want. You don't have to join just one. So if you're still exploring, thinking about different ideas of the kind of work you want to do, we highly recommend joining as many as are of interest to you. And that way you're going to get newsletters directly from us career advisors who specialize in these industries. And we'll give you reminders about events and other cool resources that align with those career interests. So definitely check that out. It's a great way to stay connected with us. Um, and we have some advisors in the audience as well, so they're going to be posting helpful hints and tips and tricks in the chat too. We hope to have the chat be an active space in our presentation today. So as we are coming together today, we're going to be talking about ways to explore personal, community, and career benefits of doing volunteer and social work. We're also going to help you to get access to resources for finding volunteer and service opportunities that are right for you, and how you can and you'll be able to learn how to maximize your volunteer and service work experience before the experience itself, during and after. So that way you can have a really great quality experience while you're engaging in it, and also think about how to use it as a stepping stone for the interests and other opportunities that you would want to get involved in the future. Um, a couple of housekeeping things. In addition to us doing a recording of this, everybody who has checked into the presentation is also going to get a copy of the slides. So you're going to see a lot of hyperlinks and stuff that I'm going to click on. So don't worry, you're going to get a copy of this presentation with all of those links. And we love a note taker, but you don't worry about having to jot down every single thing because you're going to get these slides later. So feel free to be active in the chat, connect with each other. We love that. Ask us questions. We're going to keep an eye on the chat for questions. So every now and then we'll pause to answer some of them, but we're going to do our best to save time at the end for questions as well. I'm a talker and I could talk all day about this kind of stuff. So I'm going to have to rein myself in and make sure that we stay within the hour. I'm going to do my best. Sorry, Emily, if that doesn't happen. But we're going to make it work. So if there's anything that we don't get to or anything that you're like, oh, I would really love to hear more about that, you're welcome to connect with us or schedule a follow-up appointment with an advisor to talk about what you learned from the presentation or any other questions that you might have. And like I said, connect with each other in the chat. This is a really great place to meet folks who are also interested in volunteer and service work. There are folks who might have already engaged in some of these experiences or maybe just signed up for some. So if you're interested in connecting with each other or you want to learn more about an experience, see who's talking in the chat about it and see if you guys can connect both now and later after the presentation. Oh, and another piece that I didn't specifically mention is if you want to ask us a question, but you want to keep it anonymous, you're welcome to private message a question to either Emily or me. And then we'll receive that and answer your question in the presentation. All right, so I'm going to have Emily kick us off.
Great, thanks, Catherine. So just to kind of get us grounded and get started, we really wanted to focus on the values of our institution here at Loyola. So I'm sure we've all heard Cur Personalis as a part of our Jesuit values. The technical definition is care for the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. But I'm curious, outside of the technical definition, what does Cura Personalis look like? How have you seen it enacted in your day-to-day life as a Loyola student or even our staff members as well? You can brainstorm that a little bit and put some stuff in the chat as it comes up. Um, but I like to think of it as directly connected to Loyola's mission. I think that our mission is very focused on the values of the Jesuits, as it should be. And I pulled this quote here from Loyola's mission. It's in the service of humanity through learning, justice, and faith. And I think that is a major factor in why and how and what people are looking for in terms of doing volunteer and service work. So just wanted to kind of foreground that all of what we're talking about today is rooted in our Jesuit values and our institutional mission. It's kind of a direct result of that being a part of our ethos here. So just wanted to share that. And if you are willing to share about Cura Personalis and how it looks for you, please do. Catherine, if you could move to the next slide. Okay, so I mentioned this just a second ago, but why do volunteer and service work? What motivates you to pursue these opportunities? And feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like, but also feel free to put stuff in the chat as well. Why do you pursue volunteer or service work, or why would somebody do that? Resonance with mission? Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Absolutely. There's a reason you chose to be here at Loyola, because you resonated maybe with that part of the mission in particular. Or thank you. Yeah, belief in putting good energy into the world and giving back, humility. Yeah, definitely. That kind of personal value motivator for pursuing work. Making an impact on an important cause. Definitely. There's no shortage of issues out there or things people are passionate about, and volunteer and service work is a great way to affect change in those areas. Yeah, living out values and gaining new skills in community, giving back to communities that don't always have access to resources. These are all excellent and are common reasons that we hear when folks are looking to pursue volunteer and service work. So, Catherine, if you could click again. So you can see we have some examples here of common motivators. So doing good in the world, helping people, making an impact, but also building those skills, your people skills, right? And knowing that there are short and long-term career benefits to doing service and volunteer work. Um, so this is kind of common ways that people feel motivated to pursue these opportunities, and maybe you see yourself reflected here or in the chat. Um, as for why you would want to pursue it. So then I'll hand it back over to you, Catherine, to talk about those benefits.
Yeah, so there's, a lot of personal reasons and community-minded reasons that folks pursue volunteer and service. And what we have seen is there's a lot of benefit and value to utilizing volunteer and service work for career benefits as well. And so, we love a good study. So I did a little digging and I found that there are some studies that show that volunteer work can be considered as a tool for professional development, for concrete employment, that it helps students acquire a wide range of skills. And these kind of skills are things that employers are looking for. Our professional association, NACE, does a survey with employers every year, and they always ask, what are the top skills that you're looking for from new grads, whether they're undergrads or graduate students. And these skills are the ones that are always in the top 10, no matter what. Decision-making skills, leadership skills, creative thinking, strategic thinking, being able to work in a team and engage in conflict resolution. These are all super valuable skills that you can also gain from experience in volunteer and service work. It also is shown to have a positive impact on employability and on the development of employability skills among all age groups and professional categories. So I love this because this is not just for our helping profession folks. This is also for, anybody who wants to be employed. You can benefit from engaging in volunteer and service work um, for the good of your career development. So pretty good stuff. What we've also seen as career advisors is that volunteer and service work is a fantastic opportunity for career exploration, especially if you're looking at volunteer opportunities with like organizations or in industries that you ultimately want to work in. Really great way to get to know an organization or even get some experience in a work environment that you don't have experience with before. It's a fantastic way to build connections and community with peers and with industry professionals. So, I've talked a lot about connecting with each other in the chat. I think connecting with peers is just as valuable as connecting with professionals when it comes to building your network, because you can really learn and get inspired from each other and learn about a lot of great opportunities too. Fantastic way to get your foot in the door. As somebody who works with students interested in nonprofit work, I can tell you that nonprofit jobs can be quite competitive at the entry level. And one of the ways that you can build a relationship with a nonprofit is to start with volunteer work. So if somebody gets your resume on their desk and they see, oh, this person has volunteered at our organization, then they can see that you are already invested in the mission of the organization. You already know about the organization and the people that they help or the causes that they champion. So it's a fantastic way to connect yourself directly with the organization and their mission. Also fantastic for enhancing your resume for future internships and jobs. If you're a career changer and you're trying to pivot into a new industry, there could be good opportunities to engage in volunteer work to show skills that align with the new career that you're trying to do, as well as the new industry that you're trying to get involved with. And we've also seen that there are some wonderful benefits to enhancing your applications for advanced education programs too, whether it's graduate school, med school, law school, fellowship opportunities, things like that. So we'll throw a little data at you. We have with this slide, you can see for our folks interested in pre-health that there is data to show, and these are all local medical schools. that there is a super high percentage of applicants who include community service and volunteering in a medical setting in their applications. So we can see that this is something that a lot of applicants have in their docket, basically their portfolio for demonstrating their skills and the type of involvement that they engage in. And I'm going to throw it over to Emily to share some pre-law info.
So we figured as the advisor for law policy and government, it might make sense for me to talk a little bit about this as well. These are benefits and tips to pre-law students when you're thinking about the impact of volunteer and service work on law school applications. So one thing I especially want to highlight is that the American Bar Association, so the Professional Association for American Attorneys, highlights public service and promotion of justice as a core experience to prepare for law school. So I'm not going to read this quote, verbatim, but basically driving home the point that you should engage in some sort of public service, promotion of justice opportunity before going to law school. It's also, similarly to medical school applications, a great way to show um, demonstrated interest and continued persistence, I would say, in different opportunities for different causes that are meaningful to you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be related to the law. It can be about, you know, environmental equity. It can be about urban planning. It can be about basically anything you think of. So ways to leverage that work and law school applications, choose work that is meaningful to you, make it a long-term commitment, where possible, get involved in leadership roles, and reflect on your experiences, which you should keep in the back of your mind because we're going to talk a lot about reflection in this workshop as well. So let's dive into how to make the most of your experience. We've broken up this workshop into kind of three temporal stages. So before you begin and kind of researching and preparing for volunteer and service work, what you should expect to do during an opportunity, and how you can reflect and connect after you finish up with that opportunity.
All right, so just like Emily said, reflection is a big piece to this. So we've talked about the benefits to doing volunteer and service work, and you're probably revved up and ready to start looking for stuff. So what do we do? How do we start? The first thing is to think, to reflect. And so it can be helpful as you're exploring these different options to have some starting points, like a couple prompts to help point you in the direction that makes sense. Emily mentioned work that is meaningful to you is a benefit to engaging in volunteer and service work. It's beneficial for everybody, honestly, because you can put more of your heart into the work, and people can tell whenever you're doing work that feels meaningful to you. And so that's another piece. We talked about how beneficial volunteer and service is to candidacy for like grad programs and jobs and stuff like that. But it's also helpful to remember that it's not just about checking a box. It's not just about advancing or promoting your own candidacy. It's also about doing work that is meaningful, where you can give back to the community, where you can approach it from a place of humility and not from a place of trying to like save or rescue, especially maybe a community that you're not a part of. So it's always helpful to keep that in mind as you are thinking about the sort of volunteer work that you want to pursue. But some places to start could be, are there causes that are important to you? Things like animal welfare, maybe homelessness, legal rights, things like that. Think about what kind of environment you want to work in. This is a really great opportunity to test out some work environments. If you want to work in medicine, you could try to volunteer at a hospital to see, is working in a hospital setting something that you want to do? Does that feel like an environment that feels comfortable for you? Same thing if you're interested in environmental studies or ecology or marine biology, where you're going to be spending a lot of time outside. Try to volunteer for opportunities where you're going to be in similar environments to see what it's like to be out in the field for several hours a day. You might love it, you might not. Volunteer work is a great low pressure way to test that out. Also helpful to think about the practical details. So how are you going to get there? Do you have access to a car? Do you need to use public transportation? Do you have a pal that you can commute with together? to go to that opportunity. So think about those pieces that can help you narrow down your options. Consider who's in your network, who you might be able to talk to, who you know already, who could give you ideas for volunteer and service work. What resources do you already know about that you could utilize to find these opportunities? Also, think about what you want to learn. Who do you want to help as a part of this effort? And also, when is a good time for you to volunteer? I know that the academic year can be bananas, and there can be different levels of busyness depending on what year you are in school, what semester you're in, if it's the summertime versus like a spring or a fall semester. So also think about what level of commitment are you willing or able to make. And sometimes it might be good to do a shorter term type of experience, and then others you might feel, oh, this is a good time for me to plan for maybe a longer commitment because I have more capacity to do that. And you can certainly do a combination of them. So don't be afraid to test out those different types of options too. So, when it comes to finding opportunities, Loyola has so many amazing resources for finding things, especially with starting at Loyola. So, if you're wondering about things like how would I get there, or I don't know if I have the time or the capacity, Loyola has a bunch of different options that you can choose from for finding something that's the right fit for you. So as we're going through these experiences or these different resources, if you're already involved in them or you're interested in them, please post in the chat, talk about that. So then folks have a chance to connect with you if they're interested in chatting about your experience. So first thing I'll mention is uh, student orgs. So check out the Center for Student Engagement. There's a great list of student orgs that you can check out. A lot of them do service work. So it's a great way to think about opportunities for leadership building if you want to join like as like an officer or like a president or what have you at the org. Also a great way to get involved with the volunteer work. I also included a link to LU Community because a lot of the orgs post in there about opportunities. All right, I see somebody is interested in the CELTS learning courses, and I can actually talk about that one right now. So, as many of you know, engaged learning is a requirement at Loyola, and there are a lot of different ways to fulfill that requirement, right? There are actually service learning courses that you could take to fulfill that engaged learning experience. So if you click on this, you can actually see what those courses are. And so you can see down here, there's, you can fulfill that engaged learning through academic internships, research, but also service learning. So take a look at those courses, talk to your academic advisor, and see, what feels like a good fit for you. Let's see here. So going back to the slides, another resource I want to shout out is Community Service in Action. I think they are amazing, and I highly recommend that you check them out. So this is a program like a department at Loyola, and they do so much amazing service work, and they have all different kinds of ways that you can engage. So they have some of the longer commitments like Loyola for Chicago, where you commit to a weekly engagement with a community organization. And another thing too, they really try to partner with organizations that are near campus, and particularly Lakeshore campus. So that's something to keep in mind for my water tower friends. But there are a lot of different ways to get involved with this. There's also the drop-in service that you can do at the soup kitchen. So if you find that you've got a pretty stacked semester and it's hard to make a longer term commitment, consider doing some of these drop-in experiences at the soup kitchen. And also a trick for you for, if you're wondering about kind of demonstrating a commitment, like a long-term commitment on your resume. Think about ways that you could regularly do the soup kitchen, even if it's not like a super regular every single week. But if you do it regularly enough over time, you can demonstrate that on your resume through the date range that you continue to be involved with it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And volunteer and service opportunities tend to be the most valuable when they're more in-depth experiences or if you've been doing them for a long time. So, or an extended length of time. So even if it's like, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, like that is often better than like a one shot kind of a thing. Um, there's also like leadership opportunities. So after you've engaged in some community service and action experiences, you can become a student leader, which is another great way to demonstrate advancement and building leadership skills and all of those great interpersonal skills that employers love to see on people's resumes. So there's plenty more to check out. You can look at the education and advocacy section to see the kind of advocacy work that they do. Because I believe they go to DC. Is that right, Emily?
Yeah, they have a program where they basically do like a day of service, or it's like a weekend trip almost, I think, where you just get to go engage on the Hill and do a bunch of different reflection pieces on service, and it's kind of more directly related to policy. You do have to apply to join that program, but it is a really cool opportunity if you're interested in that kind of policy advocacy.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Emily. And so one thing that I'm going to point out here, if you're looking at these opportunities, you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I don't know if I'm able to do that this fall. What I recommend is signing up for their newsletter. And that's a piece of advice that I'm going to give for any of these. Like if they have a newsletter, sign up for it because it's so helpful to use it as sort of a little reminder of like, oh yeah, these things are still going on. If you get a newsletter that says we're recruiting people now, or we have this opportunity coming up, then that can give you a chance to revisit it and think about, do I have the capacity for this now? Is this something I want to get involved in? So I highly recommend signing up for newsletters whenever you see the opportunity for them. So we mentioned CELTS already. Campus ministry is another way to get involved with volunteer and service for our Water Tower friends. I mentioned Water Tower because I'm based in Water Tower full time, so that's why I got downtown in my background. But Lakeshore gets a lot of opportunities, but Water Tower has the Libre Homeless Outreach, so that's fantastic. Um, if you're interested in environmental or ecology related opportunities, there's volunteer information there. The biology department also has a volunteer experience at Old Irving Park Community Clinic for folks who are interested in medical related volunteer and service opportunities. And the School of Education also has volunteer opportunities with their school partners. So with CPS schools, if you're interested in volunteering working with kids in a school setting, that is a great link to check out as well. And I'm seeing a lot of great suggestions and information in the chat for other opportunities, so please check that out. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. That's fantastic. All right. So, if you want to look outside of Loyola, there's a lot of ways to do that too. We have a couple starting points, but it can also be as simple as Googling Volunteer Opportunity Chicago. But if you want something a little bit more curated, here are some links. Community Service in Action has a local organization list that you can check out, where you can explore the organization's websites and see what volunteer opportunities they have available. Also, take a look at the employer lists in our career fairs. So we just had the job internship and service fair. A lot of nonprofits and places offering volunteer and service opportunities. So take a look at that list as well. CELTS has a list of recommended organizations that you can work with. And look, they've got a newsletter. And I just got their newsletter recently, and it had volunteer opportunities listed in it, along with internships and other opportunities. So I highly recommend checking that out. Chicago Cares is a non-Loyola resource that curates volunteer and service opportunities around Chicago. And you can also look at nonprofit websites and things like Idealist to find more ideas. So make sure you're thinking about those logistical things as you're considering your options, and think about the kind of questions that you want to ask if you're connecting with employers or volunteer coordinators. Think about how you're going to get there, how frequent is the experience, how long is your commitment going to be, and does it relate to the goals that you're setting out to do. That's a piece that I also want to mention, is that, like, volunteer work is unpaid and it's volunteer. Like you are electing to do it. But it's important to keep your commitment. So it's helpful to consider it carefully as you're deciding on options. Make sure that you are accepting or you're communicating that you can do a volunteer experience that you're able to maintain, at least for the amount of time that they're asking you to do it. Of course, we know things happen sometimes, unexpected emergencies and what have you can happen where you might not be able to engage fully. Helpful for sure to communicate clearly and as early as you can to the organization if you have to cut it short for some reason. But do your best to think about your ability to commit. So then that way you're able to maintain your promise, basically your commitment to them, because that's also something that employers really appreciate and notice is that, oh, this person is volunteering for us. We really appreciate them staying engaged and communicating whenever they're engaging in that opportunity. So, of course, you can always check Handshake as well. It's a job board, but you can also filter for volunteer opportunities. So, take a look at that. We also have collections where we curate a bunch of employers and events based on different topics. I created a nonprofits and NGOs one that you can use to look for employers. And we also have career community specific collections. So, if you want to try to find something more aligned with your industries of interest, definitely check those out. So, in the interest of time, I'm going to scoot along because I know it's 4:37 and we got plenty of material to cover. But these are a couple more questions to ask yourself as you're getting ready. I mentioned think about the kind of the level of commitment that you can have, what kind of strengths you want to use when doing the volunteer work, what questions do you have? Some other pieces too that are helpful to get ready for. I highly recommend having a LinkedIn profile because this is a great way to stay connected with people that you meet in the opportunity. So make sure that's up to date. And if you didn't already update your resume to apply for the experience, make sure your resume is updated too, because you never know who you're going to run into where you might want to share your resume with them. All right, so I'm going to throw it on over to Emily to talk about what to do during the experience.
Thanks, Catherine. So set the stage, you've done your research, you've selected an opportunity, and now you're going for it. So you're showing up and you are doing whatever it is you signed up for. So different tasks for different organizations, but one key thing to do during your volunteer service experience is to observe and record. So if you like to journal, definitely would recommend keeping a journal, or if you're more of an in the moment note taker, use a notes app on your phone or elsewhere to jot down inspiration, ideas, and what you've learned through the opportunity as it's happening. And we recommend this because recording your thoughts gives you the opportunity for self-reflection. You can very easily look back on where you started, how things progressed, and how you ended when you finished that opportunity. It's also good to think about how you can improve and the areas that you feel that you're doing well in. Um, it's also good to note any struggles you have or the things that you find challenging or that didn't quite meet your expectations. Um, there's definitely ways to communicate that with the organization, which I'll talk about in a moment. Um, it's also a great way to make note of colleagues that you admire and want to get to know further. Catherine mentioned LinkedIn just now. That is a great place to connect with them to say, hey, I worked with you when I was a volunteer at X place, and I would like to continue our connection. Um, so as you're observing and recording and kind of processing your experience, these are a few starter questions to get started. So are you feeling supported? What are you learning? And are you being challenged? Or are there ways that you might be able to take a little bit of initiative? And networking comes back again. It is a wonderful tool, and volunteer and service opportunities are opportunities to network as well. So, one important thing I want to share right off the bat is that networking is not about giving or receiving favors or gifts, it's about relationship building. So, Catherine mentioned earlier the power of connecting with peers doing the same work. Absolutely, it is more than okay and encouraged to talk with the folks that are in your age group or at a similar stage in their career. these are the people you're going to be doing the future work that you plan to do. So as wonderful as it is to connect with people who are maybe a bit further along or have different kinds of positions, it's also good to connect with folks at kind of your same level of experience or with the same interests or the same age. So that being said, informational interviews are also having some technical difficulties. Sorry. Informational interviews are a tool that I want to note in depth because they're these opportunities for one-on-one conversations with professionals who are in the industry that you're interested in, who are, especially Catherine, who are working at that organization you're working with and you want to learn more about whatever their role is, or they have a very similar career trajectory. A lot of Loyola students and alumni end up staying in Chicago. Maybe there's some Loyola alums at your volunteer site that you can talk to them about how they kind of went through their service trajectory or career trajectory during their time as a Rambler and also after that as well. So those are just quick 20 to 30-minute conversations. You come prepared with questions and you get to know somebody a little bit better. Um, these are also opportunities to interact with others who may have different perspectives or approaches as you do. It's a really wonderful way to learn is networking. Um, cool. So we can move to the next slide. So, how should you behave while you're volunteering? Present, professional, and open. Keep those three things in mind, right? You want to be fully engaged. So, in the scenario that a volunteer opportunity does not match up with the reality of the experience, your expectations are off a little bit, resist that temptation to disengage. It can be easy to fall back to doing the bare minimum or to do nothing, but that's not going to be beneficial for you in the long run. So resist that temptation to disengage. Think of new and creative ways that you can stay engaged, or that maybe you can work towards those expectations you had. Maintain professionalism, right? So these are opportunities to demonstrate your teamwork, tenacity, and professional skills to those around you, even if you're not super satisfied with what you're doing. Similarly to what we were talking about with recording your experiences, identify about specifics about what isn't working and where the disconnect might have been in terms of maybe it was in the information that you received while you were doing research beforehand. Maybe it was at some point in like the onboarding or training process. And think about how you can take something valuable from the experience, even if circumstances aren't what you expected. Like Catherine mentioned earlier, these are great opportunities to see, do you like doing this thing? It's kind of like a way to test a hypothesis for what you think you might be interested in. So at the very least, a lesson could be that this is actually not what I want to do, and that's okay. As you think about any disconnects, it is also okay to communicate that with the volunteer site or with a supervisor or with an organization in a professional way. So you can share about the overall experience using constructive and collaborative information rather than registering a complaint. Also know that as you are finishing up, you can seek out resources, including your friendly career advisors on this call or other mentors, the folks in the Community Service and Action Office. We're always happy to talk with you, reflect on the experience, and think about how you might navigate different situations.
All right. Sorry about the random slide advancing. I get too excited about moving the slides forward. Um, we've engaged in the experience, and what should we do afterward? Guess what? It's more reflecting. And so it's helpful to make sure that you're taking the time to think about the experience and go beyond kind of the initial, like, that was awesome, or but think about that a little bit more. What about it felt kind of or what about it felt awesome? Pay attention to those types of reactions and explore it, because that can give you a lot of insight related to what you might want to do next, or things that could give you clues about your career path as well. So think about things like, what did you accomplish during this experience? And specifically, what kind of tasks or responsibilities or projects felt the most engaging for you and why? Because those, like I said, could give you some hints about the kind of work that you might enjoy doing, that you like to spend your day doing. And that's a big part of your job, right? Is what am I spending my day doing? Think about what kind of skills you used or if there are any new ones that you developed while you were in that experience. Did it influence the kind of work that you want to do or that you don't want to do? Maybe we discovered that we don't want to spend all day out in a prairie, or maybe we do. Maybe we found out that we actually love it and we don't necessarily want to be behind a computer all day. Maybe we love working with kids, but not in a school. Maybe that gives us some insight into, well, I want to work with kids, but maybe there's a different setting that might be better for me. Think about what you could do differently if you had a chance to do this again. If you realize afterward, oh, I think I did kind of check out a little bit there. Maybe if I did this again, I would try to stay more present. Or, ooh, I there was somebody who works at the organization who was there, and I didn't get a chance to talk to them. Next time I do volunteer work, I want to try to be more proactive about meeting some of the folks who work at this organization. So think about those pieces too, because that can give you an idea of how to do a similar activity in a different way. How did this shape my understanding of the issues I want to address, the communities I want to serve, or the causes I want to support? What do I want to remember the most from this experience, and how does this influence my next steps and my future goals? So we also wanted to share another tool if you like journaling, which I do. There is a tool called a reflective practice journal that you can use. And so I believe that the pre-health folks recommend using this type of option whenever you are thinking about the experiences that you've had and how they translate to the kind of work that you want to do. So this can be a really great strategy if you like structure for your reflecting. After the experience is also a fantastic time to stay in touch with the people that you met. It can be very easy to kind of let those contacts fall by the wayside, but make sure to nurture them a little bit. And that doesn't mean you have to be best friends or talk every week or anything like that. There's ways to stay connected. So I really recommend like jotting down names, titles, contact information, and maybe even the context in which you know them, because that can help jog your memory. Send thank you notes if it makes sense, like if you had a great volunteer coordinator or a supervisor or a student leader who helped you with the experience and you want to show appreciation. That's a great way to do that. Make sure to connect on LinkedIn, and ask them like, hey, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, and then make sure to do that because we always, I understand sometimes you can forget by the time you get to your computer, but it's a good regular practice to try to do. And as time goes on, you can keep in touch. You can send out like a quick little message and be like, "Hey, I'm in my senior year now, of my undergrad, and this volunteer work I did really helped me realize I wanted to do this kind of work, or I want to apply for grad school." So even little things like that can be helpful for keeping you at the top of their mind, or for just staying, keeping that relationship in some capacity. Don't forget to do informational interviews. As Emily described, those are so amazing for career exploration and networking. Um, don't forget the power of the warm handoff. So as you're talking to folks, if you learn that maybe they know other people that you would want to talk to, either to get to know the different jobs that they do, or if they might be familiar with opportunities you want to get involved in, ask for that handoff. It never hurts to ask. Um, and these can also be good opportunities for thinking about people who could be a letter of recommendation or a referral for you, or a reference for jobs or grad school, or other opportunities that you might want to be a part of. So keep all that stuff in mind. Don't forget to show off your skills in your application materials as well. So volunteer work is really great to have on your resume. It can be a short and sweet line, just like one line about the volunteer work with the date range, or you could do something more in depth like what we have here. If you had a more in-depth volunteer experience, especially if it aligns with some of the work that you want to apply for an internship or a job or grad school or what have you, it's fantastic to structure the volunteer experience as in a similar way that you would a job. So you can put this either in your work experience or volunteer work. If you do put it in your work experience, just make it clear that it was a volunteer position. So you can see in this example, it says volunteer tutor. We want to make it clear that this was not a job, like this wasn't a paid job, because you are held to a different standard for a paid job than you are for a volunteer experience. So we want to make that clear, but that doesn't mean that you didn't do job-like stuff. So give yourself credit for the activities that you did on the job and think about the kind of skills that you want to represent based on the activities that you did. And if you have trouble thinking about ways to talk about or feature your skills, that's what career advisors are for. We're happy to work with you on workshopping some of those bullet points. But this is a good example to consider too. This is also valuable content for cover letters and future application materials. I know it can be hard to remember stuff you did like a year ago or even 6 months ago, frankly. But this is where, like, we talked about journaling or jotting things down is so helpful for, when it's time to start talking about it. If you're applying to grad school as a senior and you had a volunteer experience as a sophomore, that really helped you kind of get inspired for the career path that you're now on, it's helpful to mention that in your personal statement or maybe even a cover letter for an internship or a job that you're applying for. So think about, like, did that experience lead to career interests that motivated you to apply for grad school, med school, law school, what have you? Did it help you to build key foundational skills for a job or internship that you're currently applying for? I have a lot of students who are applying for grad school and also to go into like MSWs or counseling programs, and also new grads who are about to graduate from like MSWs or what have you, where it's helpful to talk about this volunteer experience or this service work experience was a foundation on which they built their clinical skills. So it's really helpful to talk about like ways that started your story of your career path in a way that also demonstrates your skills. So now that we've reflected and we've connected, what do we do next? This is a great point to be thinking about. I've got all of this information, I've reflected. Now what do I want to do? So, one option is to stay involved in that experience that you had, especially if you had a positive experience with it. You could either keep doing it at the same capacity, or there might be a leadership opportunity for you to get involved in. I mentioned CSA has student leader roles, so that would be a great way to kind of level up in your involvement and to demonstrate your skills. It's also totally fine, like Emily mentioned, to, if you realize you want to go in a different direction. I actually think that's fantastic. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to love working in a hospital and I actually hate it. Um, yep, that doesn't feel great, but it's also wonderful that you know that now. And so that can give you a lot of insight into, okay, if not this, what next step do I want to take in my career exploration process? It's totally fine to explore other opportunities, and we in Career Services can help you with that as well.
Okay, so to wrap things up, just some quick reminders and notes for you. If you would like to meet with an advisor in our office, you can schedule an appointment through Handshake. Catherine mentioned that earlier. So you navigate to the Career Center tab on the left-hand side of your desktop. You can click that appointments button, and then depending on your program or your year in school, you'll see some different categories. So first and second years have their own category with exploratory appointment types that you can see on the slide as well. Juniors and seniors can access career community specific appointments, and master's students and PhD students also have their own separate appointment types as well. So never ever hesitate to use Handshake to schedule an appointment. You can also always call our office or stop by one of our office spaces in Sullivan 255 or Trevor 115 for assistance in scheduling as well. So, all that being said, that is all we have for you today. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights and experiences and tips in the chat. It's very much appreciated. And just know that we're here to support you at all stages of your career journey, including as alumni. So 5 years, up to 5 years post-graduation, you can still meet one-on-one with advisors in our office. Um, and just to throw out a reminder of what Catherine said at the very beginning of the presentation, we'll be sending a PDF of the slides out to you all, and there'll also be a recording since we have now just recorded this entire thing. So thank you again, and we have about 5 minutes left, so we can open it up for some questions, unless I'm forgetting anything, Catherine.
Yeah, that you got it. So I'm going to stop the recording in a second, and we'll open the floor for questions. We hope that this was inspiring for you and gave you some food for thought, whether you're already engaged in volunteer work or you're thinking about getting involved. We're happy to continue that conversation with you, whether it's here or in an appointment in the future. So thank you guys so much for attending. I'm going to pause the recording now and open the floor for questions.